We turned 10 on November 22nd, and I always say that restaurant years are like dog years. You multiply them times 7. Okay, so this is a tough industry, and especially in Nicaragua, it's a very tough industry. And in Nicaragua, in what we're going through right now, it's even tougher.
Athletes, entrepreneurs, and those who've embraced the necessary change for the better. They've endured, discovered, rebuilt. But what about you? Are you waiting for life? Or is life waiting for you? This is the Come Up.
What's up, guys? Octavio here with the podcast, The Come Up, and today's really special for me. I have one of my heroes in life, my mentor, my uncle, and serial entrepreneur, Mark Cifuentes, here on the show. So welcome to the show, Mark.
Thank you for having me. I'm not a TV person, not a camera person. I'm camera shy.
Well, don't worry about it. This is mostly audio, so relax. Take it easy. Take a deep breath.
I'll try.
Let's just have some fun, man.
All right, I'm here.
All right, so like I said, this is my uncle, kind of like my big brother. We shared a bed for a couple of months when you moved down here to Nicaragua. Mm-hmm. That's another thing. We are in Nica. It's
Very
hot
important.
as hell.
God, yes.
And you've been here for what, 20-something years?
27 years. It'll be 28 years in April.
Jesus. So I was 13 or 14 when you moved down.
I was 20. I was 27. So
Yeah. Wow.
Remarkable. I forgot we were roommates. That's true.
It was fun. Good times.
And I gave you my collection.
You did give me your collection, and we'll talk about all that stuff later. So I wanted to have you on the show not only because I respect you as a person and I've always looked up to you, but more likely, like, you've always been an entrepreneur. We were raised by the same person, basically.
Yes.
You know, my dad. So it runs in our blood, but your story is a little different than mine. A lot of ups, a lot of downs.
Very true.
But we got through them, but here we are. So
I don't know if we've gotten through them, but we're
in it to win it.
We're on the path.
Right. And another special thing is that Porterhouse, 10-year anniversary. You know, that's huge.
We turned 10 on November 22nd, and I always say that restaurant years are like dog years. You multiply them times 7. Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is a tough industry, and especially in Nicaragua, it's a very tough industry. And in Nicaragua, in what we're going through right now, it's even tougher. We are going through some political unrest, and that trickles.
Nice way to say it.
Right, and that trickles down in so many ways, in so many things, and it's tough to keep your north sometimes, you know.
Yeah. So let's talk about the journey. Let's talk about the come up. Come down.
Wow, the journey. I mean, it's such a long and complicated story, and they say it's important to do things out of your comfort zone. This is something that's 100% out of my comfort zone. The journey, what got me here today, or the entrepreneurial journey, or what?
Let's start with the entrepreneur journey, and we'll see if we fast forward.
Wow, I owe it a lot to your dad, Octavio's dad. For those of you that don't know the story, Octavio's dad was 18 years older than.
And then you're 17 years older than me.
Exactly, and I grew up without a dad, so. Frank played some very key roles in my life. He was a paternal figure, he was a fraternal figure, and also we were buddies. So on February of 1992, he is already living in Nicaragua, and he calls my mom for her birthday, and I happen to answer the phone at my mom's house. And, we're chatting about this, we're chatting about that, and he goes, "So, what are you doing?" And I was working for a restaurant company back then. And he says, "Well, are you ever going to own one of those restaurants?" I said, "No, that's not really, the plan. They have 130 corporate restaurants, and I just go from one restaurant to another, and work there for 3 months and move on to the next one." He goes, "If you move down to Nicaragua, okay, one day you'll own your own restaurant." And that appealed to me immensely. And 27 years later, here we are today, celebrating our 10th anniversary, and I'm talking to his son. And sadly, Frank isn't here. Frank passed away in February, 10 years ago, and we opened up like 8 months after that.
I remember that.
So, although I'm thrilled at the success that we've had, one of the little emotional speed bumps on the way is that Frank wasn't able to see what I was able to create.
Oh, he knows. Yeah. But he also would have been here a lot.
Yes, and I think that would have thrown some
hiccups along the way.
Yeah, exactly. With your mom more than anything, right?
Of course. Like, where is he, Mars?
Exactly.
I was here the whole time.
Exactly. So I moved down here in April. That was, 2 months after I had that chat with your dad.
Right.
And I started working with him.
Oh, yeah.
And, he was all-encompassing. I mean, he was, oh, God, you were young, but you were also so present. All I can tell you is I started working with him. We had a ball together. I would say that 90% of what I've learned and what I apply here on a day-to-day basis, I learned from Frank. I was born and raised in the States, and the experience that I had was all, Northeast, and that's how I thought the world operated. And then you move down here to a country which is in development. Let's say that.
It was in development.
And I learned so much from him, just about how to treat people and how to project. I couldn't begin to tell you everything that I learned from him, but you know better than I do.
No. Be on time or don't come.
Eventually, one day, that led me to opening up my first bar on the beach on this Pacific coast, I don't want to say resort, but beach town.
Yeah, for spring break.
For spring break, exactly. And it was a huge success. I partnered up with my housemate and a really good friend of mine, and we did it, and it was a blast.
Super fun for me.
We were working, 20 hours a day, sleeping 4 hours, but we made buku bucks. We had a blast doing it, and I just wanted to continue doing it. So that was great. For that week, I don't remember exactly how much money we made, but we just made it.
You killed it.
We did.
I also killed it with my tab. It was fantastic as a 15-year-old.
And then after that, that was March, April of, I don't even remember the year, but 94, I think. And then I thought, I'm going to open up a bar in the capital. But I'm only going to open up for 3 months, June, July, and August. And after that, I'll close it down or sell it. So I partnered up with another good friend of mine. We did that. And right as we were about to close it in August, somebody came up to me and said, we'll buy it from you. Why close? And the reason I wanted to close is because there were so few options in Nicaragua at that time that when something new opens up, boom, everybody just starts going there all the time. And eventually you burn out. You no longer want to go there. So right as that curve was going on the downward, these two individuals showed up. They said, we'll buy it from you. And we sold it to them. And that was great. It worked out super well. And then, like a year after that, I wanted to continue in the hospitality business one way or another. And I started looking for franchises. And, you start with all the big ones, and we finally ended up with Subway. We got the franchise. We opened up, I think, in 96. And it was a huge hit. We were really the first American fast food chain to come back to Nicaragua after 1990. And when I mention that, it's important to note that I don't know how many weeks in a row, but we were the #1 store in sales in the whole system worldwide. which was huge, huge. I didn't do that on my own. I partnered up with another individual, and there I learned a very valuable lesson. The lesson is, for me, partner up with someone who's in your same stage in life. I was possibly, I don't know, I was 30 in 1996. I was about 32, 33, I think. And the individual who I partnered up with was like 25 or 30 years older than I was. And he had different expectations, to say the least. So, whereas a 32-year-old is looking to reinvest and grow the concept, the guy who's in his 50s or 60s isn't looking so much to do reinvesting and growing.
He wants his ROI.
He is more interested, exactly, in getting a check every month and chilling. So that was a very valuable lesson, extremely valuable. That relationship didn't end well, to say the least. What did I do after Subway? Oh, that's right. When about a year after we opened up Subway, we decided, there are no decent burger joints in Nicaragua. Subway. And how complicated is it to do a burger, So we opened up right next door to Subway, and we were doing remarkably well. We came up with a concept, and it did great until, in fact, about a year and a half after, maybe 2 years after we opened, McDonald's came to town.
Big boys.
Yeah, and they opened up in Plaza España,
far away, on the other side of town.
Relatively far away. And everybody thought, well, this is the end of Famous Burgers and Fries. But no, our sales went up like 25% because I think burgers were on the top of mind for people, and they weren't going to wait an hour and a half to be served at McDonald's, so they came to us. That did great. But then, about 8 months after McDonald's opened, they
opened in the mall.
The malls opened. It's not that they opened in the mall. Malls opened, and we really didn't have malls per se in Nicaragua.
That's right.
So 2 malls opened simultaneously with 2 food courts, with 1 food court each. But the point is that I went to see them, but the rent was sky high. I mean, you're talking maybe $4,000 or $5,000 a month, which, as far as the States is concerned, may not be a lot of money for a food court location, but in Nicaragua in 1998 was buku bucks. I mean, just huge. And, when you do your break even and everything, the amount that you had to sell every day just seemed exorbitant to me. So I decided to pass on the participation in the food court thing. And that was mistake number 2. My sales went down from, you have to look at it in perspective, in $1998. But back then we were doing about $2,000 a day in sales at Famous Burgers and Fries. And within a 6-month period, it went down to $160 a day. And it became just untenable, Your fixed costs remained the same. You still needed to have the air conditioning on. You still needed to have people there. You still needed to have the gas on. All your fixed expenses remained the same, and yet your sales were down to a fraction of what they were before. So in June we closed up, and then I was just in the air, and I went over to your dad's and started hanging out with him, and I started thinking, what can we do that doesn't really require a lot of labor, and it's something that's just going to work 24/7 for you, and you don't have to worry about it wearing a uniform. You don't have to worry about it calling in sick or anything. And I went through this for about 2 or 3 months, and I said, vending machines, they work for you 24/7, and no problem.
Now I was back then. I had just got back from LSU at that point.
So I proposed it to your dad. He goes, great, I'm in. So we bought 7 brand spanking new machines.
I remember.
Okay, and with the bill acceptor and coin acceptor for Nicaragua and everything, it was huge. We chose locations. We went in there. some locations work, some locations didn't, but you're mobile, so you can take it out of one, put it in the other. Excuse me. Of course, 7 vending machines isn't gonna
Make or break you.
Right. Well, no. It wasn't gonna make or break your dad, but for me, I can't make a living off 7 vending machines. Plus, I need to get a salary and pay your dad, right? And meanwhile, I have 4 kids and a wife.
Right.
Okay, so unless you have, a vending machine at an airport or something, it's not going to make you a living.
Right.
The only way to make a living is to grab whatever the vending machines make and reinvest it and start to grow the business. But again, you're in a little quagmire there because you can't put money aside because you need to live from that. So finally, we had an out. Somebody came and bought us the vending machine business, which, Frank was thrilled because he actually got money. I got some money, and I was just like, wow, this is fantastic. And then my brother-in-law, my wife's brother, said, I have the perfect business for us. We're going to become millionaires. Okay?
Love that.
Yeah. What's not to like about becoming a millionaire? So he says, we're going to start importing Chinese-made motorcycles.
Which is blowing up back then.
Right. Because Nicaragua, because of the socioeconomic conditions back then, most people weren't going to be able to buy a car. But they could buy a motorcycle. You're talking about a motorcycle between, $800 and $2,000. So, he was telling me that he knew this factory in China that, made parts for Honda or Yamaha or whatever, and they're going to sell you basically copies of these motorcycles, under our own brand. And boom, we're going to make it. So we started. We partnered up with a company in Costa Rica who already was doing it. And we started, and it was doing pretty well. I don't know anything about motorcycles, okay?
Except riding them.
Right. But, I don't know anything about motorcycles. I don't know anything about spare parts for motorcycles or anything, but off we were. I was running the company. We got to do pretty well. We were selling about 80, 90 motorcycles a month, which isn't bad. Then the energy crisis hit us down here, and we started having rolling blackouts, and people were without energy for about 6 hours a day, and we were selling generators, and we were selling water pumps and everything. So the business was doing great. At its peak, the president of the nation says, one of his popular discourses is saying, hey, all you people that have credits with micro financiers, you don't have to pay your loans back. They're charging way too much interest, and they're basically stealing money from you. So don't worry, you don't have to pay those loans back. And I'm like, my God, because my business depends on financing. If the gentleman who lives down the street can't go to the bank and finance the motorcycle he's going to buy from me, I'm not going to sell motorcycles. So I mentioned to my brother-in-law, I said, this is the time to get out of this. We're at our peak. We're doing 80, 90 motorcycles a month. We're doing great. We're in the black. This is the time to sell.
Right.
And he says, no, don't worry about, the politics about it. That was just, he didn't mean that. And we're going to be able to ride this out. Don't worry. But I just didn't agree with him. So I sold out. And that business collapsed like 2 years later. It just started going downhill because no financing.
Right.
So again, I started hanging out with your dad, but that coincided more or less with your dad's illness.
Right.
And long story short, that was 13 months. He struggled with that.
Yeah, he fought the fight.
He did. And he passed away in February, and I was broke. In fact, saying I was broke is not an accurate portrayal of my finances. I was below broke. I owed people money. I owed money at my kids' school. I owed everybody money. And I just didn't. I was doing some translating, some interpreting. I was trying to make ends meet, but it just wasn't happening for me. And I would say a complete downward spiral. And finally, one day, I'm driving my mom, for an errand of hers, And I don't know where I got the gumption to come up and say, Mom, I'm eating,
Shit.
yes, I'm eating shit. And I want you to forward me part of my inheritance. Whatever you plan to leave me, forward me some of it so I can do this project that I have in my mind. And my mom, your grandmother, she was a tough old bird.
Very.
And she surprised me by saying, sure, how much do you want? And I was in shock. I said, I need 30 G's. She goes, okay, are you sure you can do it with 30? I said, yeah, I can do it with 30. She goes, okay, transfer it to your account tomorrow. Next day I had the money in my account, and at that moment I realized that this was the 32nd opportunity I've had in my life, okay? I've messed up so many other times. I just said, this is it. This is what I got to make it work. And I was thinking, again, a burger joint, okay? Burger joint. But my wife intelligently convinced me, no, do a steakhouse. You've always dreamt about having a full-service restaurant. This is the opportunity. You're going to have to do it. I said, I'm not going to be able to do it with 30 G's. You can't open up a steakhouse for $30,000. She goes, no, you can. It's just finding the right location. Location is just but one of the millions of details that go into it. You need salt shakers, you need pepper mills, you need kitchen equipment, you need an extraction hood, you need, everything. Tablecloths, fork, knives, everything. A burger joint, everything's disposable. Right. And I've done burger joints before. I've done fast food before. Right. Full service, I've never done. I've worked in it, but I've never done it. And she says, you're going to be fine. And, long story short, we were driving around Managua so many times looking for a joint till we finally found this one. This one was basically going broke. And the owner was here, and
3 restaurants were opened here before that.
No. It was 2, right.
Right, 2.
And she was looking for a way out. And I just happened to be at the right place at the right time. That was, 10 years and 3 months ago. I was able to negotiate a great lease with her. And we started out, there were, a million speed bumps along the way. My father-in-law was great also. We came up at 30, with 30 G's that we came up with. At the end, we needed 10 more. He lent us 10.
That's awesome.
And boom, it started. Really slow at first. I remember a customer of mine once said, congratulations, everything's great. How long have you been open? And I said, I was open maybe 3 or 4 years. And he said, don't worry. When you hit year 7, you're going to start to make money. Real money. I don't want to say I'm making real money, but I'm doing well. I'm making a good living.
Got 4 kids in college.
4 kids in college. 2 are done. 2 more in college right now. And we're doing well. I consider ourselves truly blessed. We have a good business. We have a team of 37 individuals that work with us on a day-to-day basis. We have very low employee turnover. I think that says a lot about what we do here. Right. And the way we run it. I think the individuals that work here like working here. They are making considerably more than their Nicaraguan counterparts. And I'm happy that they're happy. They're happy that they're happy. But basically, it's working for everybody. One of the speed bumps was the property next door to us became available like maybe 3 or 4 years into our lease here, and I decided it was very important to control that real estate.
Absolutely.
So I got it, and then I thought, well, gee, what am I going to do? What are we going to put there? You're thinking, you're going around, and finally you said, Chinese food. There are no really good Chinese restaurants in Nicaragua. Let's open up a Chinese joint. And how complicated can it be, to make chop suey and fried rice? Right. Turns out it's pretty complicated. So, I start looking for a chef, and finally, I think we went through like 3 chefs, finally come up with one pretty good. We tweaked things to how we wanted, because he was more authentic, very genuine, Chinese food, and I wanted more Western style Chinese food. But first year we did incredibly well. I was very happy with it. Second year we did okay. And then the third year, I'm looking at the numbers, traffic starts to come down, check averages start to come down. It's just really bad. And I'm thinking, what that business needed was love. And I wasn't willing to give it love because I was dedicating myself 24/7 to this concept. But also, you mentioned having the 4 kids in college, and I had made a goal. I had made a goal for myself. I wanted to have 4 restaurants for each, one for each kid, so I could get through college. So the Chinese was my second joint. The third year, 1 month of my financials, I post a loss. First time. I'm like, and it hurts, but I write it off. Think, well, it was maybe just a slow month. Maybe people didn't want to eat Chinese food, whatever. I come up with a cockamamie excuse. Second month, I post a bigger loss. But then, you start to fool yourself. You're thinking, well, cash-wise, I'm still cash positive because, you have depreciation. Right. No, plus, you're putting depreciation into it. You're amortizing certain expenses and so on and so forth. Cash-wise, you're okay. So until you start to lose cash, you're okay.
That's a problem.
And I'm going to give it some love. Never gave it some love. Third month, boom, I'm losing cash. And finally, I just said, I'm not going to go down this road. I'm not going to let happen what happened at Famous Burgers and Fries.
It's a common mistake as well.
When I went down to $160 a day, I'm not going to do that over there.
Right.
So I just padlocked it, Call it a day. And now it's actually worked out even better. I use that space for events, for, corporate dinners, meetings, and things like that. It's a lot less of a headache. Your fixed costs are really nil.
So it's an extension of this.
Exactly. And it's working well. So that's all come together rather nicely. My plan about having 1 restaurant for each kid didn't pan out, but I'm still working. You
pivoted. You're still here.
I'm still here.
So here's 2 things that I remember about you. One, since I was a kid, you were always reading some kind of business book. I love that. My dad used to make fun of you for it. And you're like, it's hard work. It's not. The answers aren't in a book. Put it in practice, because my dad was street smart.
Yes.
You've always applied that book smart with the street smart that we learned from my father, I guess.
Your dad was the most creative cat I've ever met in my life. Business savvy, wow. Okay. Right. I always said that, Frank, we should lock him up in a room and have him come up with 10 ideas that day, because all of the ideas would work perfectly. But Frank couldn't run a business.
He had no follow-through.
No. Great creativity. Wow. Great business acumen. Everything. But he couldn't run a joint. I was the direct opposite. Zero creativity. Okay? I couldn't come up with a business. My life depended on it. Okay? But I can run it.
Right.
So we complemented each other well there.
It worked out.
It did.
But again, it comes out to you become your restaurant. You've accomplished that goal. Mm-hmm. How have you maintained? So I know you've joined some other organizations and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. How's that? Talk about that a little bit.
About 3 years ago, they asked me to become a member of EO, which is an entrepreneurs organization. And at first, I had my reservations about it because I consider time one of my most valuable assets.
It is your only valuable asset.
And it's, it's really one of those things that you just can't buy.
It's the only thing you can't buy. Can't buy more of.
Right, exactly. At the end, when you have your little oxygen mask on, you want more time.
That's it.
So the individual who was asking me to join the organization, he goes, well, do you want to or not? I said, well, how much of a time commitment does it represent? It was 4 hours a month. 4 hours a month I can do. I learned a lot. No, I didn't learn a lot, but I learned very important things.
That's more important.
Exactly. And the most important thing that I learned in that organization was something called Profit First. I don't remember the name of the author of the book or the concept, but it was this 15-minute chat, and it changed my perspective on the
Put
way
yourself
I
first.
run my business.
Right.
And I applied some of what he said to the way I run this business, and it's changed my life. And that sounds, I don't know.
I read that book.
Did you?
Yeah, I did.
Wow. And it makes perfect sense.
You first.
Wow.
Because you don't become a slave to your business.
Exactly.
You are the number one. But there's a lot of, in my opinion, there's a lot of, you could go too much towards that.
Yes.
Because
Sure.
you could drain your own business and you can mess up your own cash flow.
True.
There's a fine line in a hybrid that you got to,
There is, but only you know that.
right.
But if you run your business on a day-to-day basis, you know what that fine line is and where to
Right.
draw it.
But then if you have a lot of partners, and then
Right.
it gets a little complicated.
That's
right?
very true. One of the things that I'm grateful to is that, it's just, this is mine. And I don't have to share decisions with anybody except my wife. And that,
That's a fine balance too.
that's another. But we're both on board with how things have been coming along. And we're happy.
All right. So let's talk about belief and what do you think in the last 10 years have been the low points, right? Because there's a new thing I'm trying to do, right? It's more like, yeah, you can have, for example, for me, the last 2 years were a bit rough, right? I had everything, I built this castle, like I like to call FTX. I built all my wildest dreams, yet internally I was dying. I was struggling again with my alcoholism again, and I know you've always had my back when it came to that. You lied to me once, but it's fine. And we'll get into that a little later. But the idea was that I've accomplished everything physically that I've wanted, yet I was struggling internally with my disease,
Right.
so I was empty.
Okay.
And I couldn't find that balance. Yet, we've had a rough 10 years in our family.
God, yes.
It was tough. We lost my dad. We lost Coco.
My mom.
We lost my grandmother. We lost Al. It was one hit after another,
yes.
and you've been the glue, in my opinion. That a big part of that
Wow.
was holding the family together.
Wow. Well, I'm wowed that you think that.
Because my dad used to be
Oh,
the
God,
alpha
yes.
and the omega of our
Yes,
family.
he was. Yeah.
Things were always at our house.
Yes.
It was always him.
Yes.
Now, at the same time, I've thought, when I left Nicaragua 10 years ago, there was no way in hell I would have been able to build FTX or myself with my dad present.
Yeah, I get that.
have you
I
thought
get
that?
that, and I think a lot about that with my company. I thought, wow. Oftentimes, I thought, wow, where would I be right now if Frank was still alive?
Right.
Would I still be going to his office every day looking to see what opportunities
What do we
would
got?
arise?
What's going on?
Exactly. Instead of, I don't know. I know that he prepared me for what I'm doing right now.
Absolutely. Same
But
thing with me.
Right. But the other day, you posted a picture of yourself with Robin and Frank Jr. And my gut reaction was to say, wow, congratulations, your dad is proud of you because you formed a great family. And I think that professionally, insofar as I'm concerned, I think it's really hard to excel in whatever it is that you're doing if in your personal life you're not doing well.
Right.
So I think right now you're doing great with FTX, but I think that goes hand in hand because I think you found
Peace.
a great woman. Right, inner peace. God, isn't that just wow? Inner peace, so valuable. And a lot of people don't know that they have it.
Yeah.
And also, throughout these years, we've known people in our life that I think didn't know how to be happy. Coco, my sister, God, love her to death. Great person, one of the most generous individuals I've
Biggest
ever met
hearts
in my
ever,
life,
yeah.
right? But I don't think she knew how to be happy. I pray every day. And in my morning prayers, I always say, please continue to show me how to be happy. Because I consider myself a happy guy, but, I can always be happier. A few minutes ago, you mentioned Al, my son. That is lowest point. Al was 22. He had maybe a month and a half left of his college studies to go, and he committed suicide. And wow, I mean, whew, as a father, first of all, you consider yourself a failure. How could you not know what your son was going through? You know?
Yeah.
Wow, I mean, it just came out of left field. Plus, I had spoken to him the day before. And it's just, I mean, to say it's the worst experience an individual can go through doesn't do it justice. It's terrible. And you never get over it. Because the grief, it evolves. You know what I mean? At first, you're stunned. Then you're angry with yourself because you have no one to blame but yourself. He's not happy. You're his parent. You know what I mean? So, oof, tough. Really tough. Some good, I'll tell you, I can't imagine, I'm 55 years old. I can't imagine having gone through this with somebody other than my wife. I remember when I landed in Dallas, I was talking to Jeff, my best friend, and he goes, be mindful of Maria Paz, my wife. I said, of course I am. What are you getting at? And he gave me a stat which really surprised me. He goes, 80% of marriages that go through this, that lose a child, and then divorce. More so if it's a suicide. And I thought he was wrong. When I got back to Nicaragua, about a month after we'd laid Alejandro to rest, we started going to a psychologist. And I mentioned it to her, and she goes, it's actually 95%. And among the good things that I have in life is my wife. And wow, I mean, we've been married for 25 years now. And I couldn't have gone through this with anybody but her. And like I said, the grief process, it continues to evolve. Continues to evolve. That's all I can tell you. There are good days, and there are bad days. It's the way it is.
I mean, for us, I think in our family, or at least for me, that was one of the hardest phone calls I've ever got.
Who told you? Who called you?
My sister. My sister called me crying. I was at work. All I remember was calling Robin saying, I gotta go. She's like, what do you mean? I was like, I just gotta go. I'm leaving to Dallas with Mark. Met up with Nicole at the airport, and we met up with you. And I didn't know, right? So it was, you've always been there for me. All I knew is that I had to be there. I didn't know emotionally because I'm not very, I'm that guy. I'm there. I just didn't know how to. And selfishly, I had a theory, right? I was like, oh my God, was it mental? Was it? Because I live in the substance abuse problem. I was like, oh my God,
right.
Please don't tell me that. Because I'm surrounded by overdoses.
Right, sure.
So I was like, oh my God, please don't, I wish they had skipped.
Right.
I was like, God, please don't let it be this.
Right.
Selfishly, right?
Right.
Because I don't think I would like to see anyone else in my family
go through
what I've gone through.
Of course.
But those are hard. I mean, but before that, we had to go through my grandma, and that was a long battle. Yeah. Right?
It's true.
Before that, No, we had
No.
Coco right before.
Right. I had Coco
Alex.
before that. My Socorro passed away. Okay, Alex passed away on October 31st. But Coco passed away June 30th, just a few months before Alex. And
your mom in June.
my mom passed away April 23rd. So it was just one after another. And, of course, you could say that my mom was 93 years old, that, she led a full life, and she came to the end of her life. Yes. And, we're programmed to accept that our 93-year-old mother is going to pass away eventually. So, do I miss her? I do. There are several times a day when I think, God, I wish I had Mom around so I could, bounce some ideas off her head. Because the tough old lady, she knew her stuff. But then my Socorro passed away, and wow.
Which
my
was
sister,
the elder, right?
Right, my Socorro was 15 years older than I was. So, and we she was my first phone call. I wake up in the morning, nobody's awake in my house. I have a nice tea, I watch the news, shower, shave, get dressed, come to the office. But in the car, on my way here, she was my phone call.
Right.
Hey, how you doing today? So what are you going to do? Whatever. She'd show up here at the restaurant 3 times a week, and we just jibber jabber all the time. So we weren't as close as your dad and I,
Right.
but we were always present in each other's lives.
Absolutely. She was that person. Well, she was one of maybe 2 people I knew that could stand up to my dad.
Yes, that's very true. Relatively.
To a point.
Right.
Right. Or she didn't care what his opinion was, and she was going to do whatever she wanted anyway.
Yes. That pretty much runs in the family. Everybody does pretty much what they want to do.
Right. And she always had our back.
Yes, she did.
Right. So that was my go-to person when I couldn't talk to, when I had no person with my conflicts with my father. I was like, Coco, what do you think? She's like, give me 5 minutes with him. Of course it didn't work, but I could bounce stuff through her, and she was cool. But we did have a lot. Our family, I felt like we were kind of cursed for a while. I was like, God, it's one thing after another.
Definitely.
It was a rough decade.
God, yes. It was terrible. But getting back one moment to what you said about Al passing away and substance abuse, I'll tell you this. I knew Al liked to smoke pot every now and then. And I'm thinking, wow. First of all, when I left Nicaragua, got on that plane to head over there, I didn't know how he passed away. I didn't have the slightest idea. It wasn't until Jeff tells me. In fact, we were in the car together.
Yeah.
You and Nicole already knew, but I didn't know.
Right.
I'm thinking, you know what? First of all, God, the balls on this guy to do what he did.
Huge.
And of course, the counterbalance of that is, how unhappy do you have to be, or how unwell do you have to be to do that? But then I thought to myself, in the end, I hope he was high. Really, I don't think I've ever said that about anybody, but I'm thinking, wow, I hope he was high. I really did, because maybe it made those last it would have made those last 3 or 4 seconds of his life less awful. The next day, I'm sure you remember our first meeting was with the police department and so on and so forth. I spoke to the investigator. Long story short, a week later, I wrote to the investigator. I said, listen, you didn't mention anything about
Toxicology.
Right. And, my son, every now and then, I know he liked to smoke weed. Did you find any weed? And he goes, well, I didn't want to say anything. But yes, we did find, a little baggie, full of weed in his room. But apparently you can sense the smell or something. He goes, in my opinion, he hadn't smoked any that night. We didn't find, anything. And I said, okay, well, we'll wait the toxicology report. And then it turns out that they didn't run a toxicology report because it didn't contribute. They used to say it didn't contribute to the death. So we'll never know. But that's that. But yes, it was a tough decade, very tough emotionally. And I was telling my wife the other day, Christmas was my favorite holiday. God, loved Christmas.
You always have.
God, it was just huge, huge. Loved it. And now, I still like it, but it's not the same. You're missing somebody.
Right. We're missing a lot of people.
Yes, but again, we're programmed for it. I knew my mom wasn't going to be around forever.
Right.
Your dad left too early. He was 62 when he passed away?
61.
61. Way too early. But still, you knew
He's your
that.
older brother.
Exactly. But wow, you lost a kid. It's terrible.
Okay, so let's go through purpose now. So what, if I asked you today, why do you wake up every day? And why do you keep going? Because I know you were struggling for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So what is it that you hold on to every day
Well, you know what?
to keep kicking ass?
I'll tell you, I think, isn't it easy just to call it quits? I think that's the easiest thing to do. I can only speak for myself. Sometimes you just say, God, can't take it anymore. Forget this. I'm just going to veg out of my bed all day and watch reruns of The Sopranos, Mm. But I got 3 great kids. My daughter, I'm always joking with her, saying, that she was switched at birth at the hospital because she's great. She's been a great student. She's been a great daughter. She's a great young lady. She just finished college a week ago. So she is one of my motivators. Okay. Then we have Rafael. God, I enjoy him.
Octavio Cifuentes, right there.
Yes, he is great as well. It's incredible how you have 4 kids and they're all so radically different one from the other. You only have one, but you're going to see when you have more, it's never going to stop surprising you how different each kid is. And then Roberto, the youngest, oh my God, I live my life vicariously through him. He has such a ball. I mean, talk about living happily. That guy is probably one of the happiest people I know. And they are my primary motivation.
Okay.
And then I love the life that I have with my wife. And I love the family that we formed. And that sounds kind of corny, but I'll tell you, you go back in your mental Rolodex and you start thinking about all the people you dated and have been with and so on and so forth. And 25 years later, I can still tell you I could not possibly have married somebody better than my wife. I couldn't be happier with that.
Shout out to Maria Paz.
Yeah, shout out to her. And I couldn't, we formed a great family. Like I said, have we had our downs without? Yes, definitely. But I'm still very happy with the family that I have, and that is my primary motivator.
I think we're all very proud of you. I mean, we love you. Like I said, I think you're the glue that's kept us together.
I never thought I was perceived that way.
You
wow.
are. Well, you are. I'm just telling you, that's how I perceive it. I know my wife loves you. Robin loves you.
She's great.
And everybody else, you're the guy that keeps us bound. Right?
Wow.
We go, we hang out, we do that. I mean, we always have our internal bullshit, but it's fun. It's good to be a Cifuentes.
It is.
It's always entertaining.
You know what the best thing is? I think I know 100% that you always have my back.
Yeah.
It's to the point where, I just know it. Maybe I take it for granted. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
But I hope you know that I always have yours. And I think all of us know, Val, God, I know,
Yeah.
and she knows, and Nicole, we're all one big happy family.
The movie's going to be fantastic.
Yeah. I always say it's a soap opera.
It definitely is. And this was great. This was, I think, my favorite podcast so far. It was fun, and I wanted to thank you, not only for the person that you have molded me into, but for the person you are to our family. And I know everybody's proud. Yeah.
Well, I've never seen it that way, but I'm thrilled to be a part of it. It's I want us all to continue to be together, whatever the cost. Whatever the cost. and just continue to have fun and to grow and to raise Frank and to have him be part of this and to know all these crazy things that we do and eating deviled ham on bread in the morning, which is probably the most disgusting thing in the world, and how much we enjoy it.
Yeah, it's funny in our family chat how I like to check it out. Little deviled ham in the morning, like delicious.
Exactly.
But yeah, man, this was fun. I really enjoyed it, and I love you very much.
As do I.
As I love all my cousins and nephews and godsons. We have a fun little bunch.
We do.
And, we didn't talk about it to say, Elsa, we love you too. You weren't on
Definitely. Definitely. God. And Elsa,
another entrepreneur in the family.
Another entrepreneur. And you know what I tell people, because they ask me, so how's Gilmar doing? How's Elsa doing? And I always say, Elsa's doing remarkably well. And they go, really? What is she doing? She owns her own studio in New York City, right? Wow.
You make it there, you make it anywhere.
Exactly. And, she works, she supports herself, she helps her family out. Wow. And
she left early.
Right. And she's an incredibly happy person.
Yeah, she's always happy, smiling. Merry Christmas, Elsa. We love you.
Yeah, we do. We're going to miss you this year.
Yeah. It's fun. Well, this was great. Well, thanks for being on the show. I know you were nervous, but that was just a good conversation.
It was.
I love you, man.
I love you too.